Man, I love that intro. Boy, I love that intro. I love that little beat. That little B3 organ riff with that little hip hop beat. I love it. What's up, y'all? I'm off my Celsius, so I am amped up, energized, and ready to go. I hope you and yours are doing well. What's up to my brother, Nick, Reverend Nick Quint? How you doing, my brother? Good to see you. Man, we about to have a discussion today, y'all. Listen, would you do me a favor? Would you like, share, and subscribe? Let your network know that we are on and we are live, and we're about to talk about something that I believe is important. I believe it's consequential. I believe it's interesting to talk about. And I believe that it will be enlightening for you. So I am live on YouTube. I think I'm live on Facebook as well. And so, again, please call the troops in. Let them know that we are live. So check it out. Check it out. Check it out. Many of you know, many of you guys that follow my ministry, you know that I talk about the Black church often. I feel called uniquely by God to do whatever I can to see that the Black church flourishes, to do my part in seeing that the Black church flourishes into the future and beyond. And it's something that is exhilarating for me to do, but y'all know it's controversial as well. Yes, advocating for the Black church is controversial as well, because anytime you talk about Black people or Blackness positively, you're gonna get blowback. You're gonna get pushback, particularly from those that have issues with Blackness, whether it's the Blackness within themselves or Blackness exhibited by others. My sister is here. My sister, Michelle Turner. I'm about to make you. I think I figured out how to make moderators. Michelle, bam! I just made you a moderator. Thank you so much, Michelle. So, y'all, I catch a lot of bullets, y'all. I catch a lot of bullets, but it's okay because I feel called to this, and I feel like the Lord has uniquely equipped me to do what I do. And I'm not the only one. There are others out there that advocate for the Black church, and so I'm just one in a course. And I see y'all coming in now, so great. I'm glad that y'all coming in. Do me a favor, as y'all are coming in, like, share, subscribe. Let everybody know that we're on and that we're going to have this conversation. I see my brother Nick. I see my sister Michelle. They are both moderators, and they're going to help me to keep this thing rolling along. So the idea behind this particular broadcast was birthed in my mind after somebody made a Facebook post about me. And I responded to the Facebook post initially when it was made. And after a few days, I thought, I think this would be a good topic to discuss on this podcast. I'm not going to say the person's name who made this post about me. I don't want, if you were here on my last live, then you know that my goal is not to make this a reaction channel or response channel where I'm out there looking for people talking about the Black church, or I'm intentionally responding to people that have something slick to say to me. That's not what this channel is about. This channel is more so about education, inspiration, theological information. And that's what I see this discussion as being: an opportunity to learn, an opportunity for those of us that are interested in understanding the Black church, interested in Black church studies, interested in some of the debates that rage around the Black church. I think this is a good topic for those of us to engage in. And that's why I'm doing this. I'm not really caring so much about the naysayers, even though I get them. And sometimes I hear more from the naysayers than I do from the supporters, and we need to change that, y'all, but it's okay. Naysayers, y'all are welcome. Welcome, naysayers. I want you to like, comment, and subscribe as well, because either way it goes, you hit the algorithm. But I do think this is going to be a teachable moment. Let's talk about the terms black church and white church. And let's talk about why it is okay to use one of those terms and potentially problematic and maybe even racist to use another one of those terms. And I want to couch this conversation in a message that I received, as I mentioned, on Facebook. And I want to show you guys this message. I've cropped the name out. You guys aren't going to know who this person is. And I don't want you to scour Facebook looking for this post. This happened days ago. But this is how the post began. So this person made a post, and they were real slick with it, because they made the initial post without tagging me, without putting my name on it. Even though it was really addressed towards me, they made the initial post to try to prove a point without tagging me or including me. And this is what the post initially said. The post said, check the comments for an update to this post. Okay. And here was the post. The racists on X are getting bolder and out of hand. They are trying to encourage and foster more whites to develop a more white conscious identity. This type of mindset is unbiblical. Whiteness has no place in the church. Pastor, some people misunderstand on purpose. This is proof that we need intentional white identity formation in the white church as an intricate part of discipleship. Thank God for your ministry. So that was the initial post on Facebook that everybody saw initially, right? And so it sounded like this person was pushing back against this type of rhetoric on X, pushing back on this type of approach and desire to affirm whiteness and white identity within the quote unquote white church. And notice in that post, the term white church was intentionally used. So it sounded like this person was standing up to white supremacy and the white church being engulfed by white supremacy. But then you had to drill down into the comments. And then when you drill down into the comments, you see that in the comments, this particular person posted this. This was in the comments. Actually, the comment was made by a black pastor promoting black identitarianism. Identitarianism is spelled wrong, but that's all right. That's all right. It's cool. It's an SAT word. I'm not upset. I spell words wrong as well. Promoting black identitarianism within the Bride of Christ. Sadly, now here's where my name is tagged. Isaiah Robertson agrees with and promotes this type of unbiblical ideology. So I did this to prove a point. Isaiah, we are not rejecting your message because we hate ourselves. We reject it because it is the same mindset that oppressed our ancestors. You've adopted the ideology of your oppressor. I hope this opens your eyes and that you repent of your ethnic idolatry. We speak up because we care about y'all. We want to see you free from the bondage, racial and ethnic idolatry, bondage of, I think they meant to say bondage of racial and ethnic idolatry. We are not to disciple people into blackness, but to an identity rooted in Christ. So, brother, my prayer is that you will repent, place your hope, faith, and identity in the finished work of Christ and Christ alone, not Christ plus blackness or any other identity. So that was the comment left on the initial post, making it clear that that post was geared toward me. Now, what motivated this person to make this Facebook post? Well, obviously, this person had gone onto my Facebook. They saw a post that I made, and then they saw a comment that somebody made under that the post that I made. And this was the comment. My friend and brother Bishop James Ross commented that on a post that I made on my Facebook page. And this is what happens, y'all. People now have gotten to the point, because Facebook is where my biggest audience is. I'm still trying to build my YouTube, my Instagram, my old Instagram was hacked. I've had to start all over with my Instagram. Facebook is where my biggest audience is. So yes, there are people that scour my Facebook page looking for fodder for their own fragility. But nonetheless, my friend, my brother, Bishop James Ross, commented on a post that I made where he said, "Pastor, some people misunderstand on purpose. This is proof that we need intentional Black identity formation in the Black church as an intricate part of discipleship. Thank God for your ministry." And I responded to Bishop Ross on my page, to his comment on my post. I responded by saying, "Facts, all facts." And so what the person did is they took that comment that was made on a post that I made by Bishop James Ross, my friend and my brother, and made an entire Facebook post about it, which is fine. Facebook is public. I don't care. The reason why I'm using this as the foundation upon which we have this conversation is because this person that made this Facebook post seems to equate the terms Black church and white church. This person seems to view those terms equivalently, as if the opposite or the counter to the existence of the Black church, or the affirmation of the Black church, is the existence or the affirmation of the white church. And I hear this often amongst those that critique my ministry, amongst those that have a real big problem with what I do. The pushback is, well, Isaiah, how would you feel if white people felt called and compelled to advocate for the white church, and they wanted to see white churches flourish, and they were all about the strength and the enduring existence of the white church? And I hear that often, get that often, and I really am grieved when I get that pushback, because it's a false equivalency. And that's what we're going to talk about today. We're going to talk about the differences between the term Black church, between the term white church, and why they are not equivalent terms, and why it is not racist to advocate for one institution, but it could be potentially racist. Now, I'm highlighting the word potentially, because there are people that advocate for things out of ignorance. There are people that advocate for things without really understanding and knowing about what they're advocating for. And so it listen, I want to give the benefit of the doubt and extend the benefit of the doubt to my brothers and sisters in Christ that they just don't know. They just don't know the history behind the word white, the term whiteness, or even the construction, the social construction of race, and how we got these categories to begin with. And so I want to extend the benefit of the doubt to them. So this is going to require that we have a bit of a history lesson. This is going to require that we understand how this concept of race evolved, particularly here in America and in the West. Where did this concept of blackness even come from? Where did this concept of whiteness even come from? And why is it different to say black or black church and white or white church? Well, listen, I don't want to do all the heavy lifting. Uh-oh. I'm having some problems here. Hold on one second, y'all. Okay. I think we should be good now. All right. I don't want to do all the heavy lifting. And I understand that for some of y'all, history isn't necessarily your thing, and I get it. And so what I've done is I've tried my best to take a very nuanced and complex historical conversation and truncate it into roughly, how long is this video? 3 minutes. So hopefully in this 3-minute kind of collage of clips that I put together, you'll understand better where we get our modern day understanding of race, black, white, and otherwise. So check this out. 3 minutes. Check this out.
In his book, Whiteness of a Different Color, European Immigrants and the Alchemy of Race, historian Matthew Jacobson notes that in the US, white or Caucasian was not always considered a unified race composed of anyone of European descent. Whiteness was often considered exclusive to Anglo-Saxon descendants, while other European groups were broken into different ethnic categories such as Celt, Slavs, Iberics, and Hebrews, which were considered separate races from the 1840s to the early 20th century. But in the 1920s, when there was a stemming of immigration from Europe, these different races were subsumed into one category called whiteness to shore up a cultural majority against other racial groups and immigrants. And this persisted throughout the 20th century.
The United States has a very interesting history on how it classified Italians. Italians were not considered white. Depending on where you landed in America, you might even be classified as black. Many Italians that landed in Louisiana and throughout the South were actually classified as black. Now, mainly that had to do with the jobs they took, but it still carried on into their everyday life. They had to use segregated facilities, and there's even a case of Italians being lynched in Louisiana. If you ended up somewhere like New York or the Northeast, you might be subject to racial violence. The media would have described you as kinky-haired or swarthy or a variety of other racial epithets that I can't say here. This is actually how a writer wrote about them in the early 1900s. These sneaking and cowardly Sicilians, the editor wrote, the descendants of bandits and assassins who have transported to this country the lawless passions and cutthroat practices are to us a pest without mitigation.
Go for it, John. When did the Irish become white? And how long have you been white, John?
As a recently visibly white guy, it's a complicated history. W.E.B. Du Bois made a famous statement about the condition of blacks in America in 1890, early 1920s, and indicated they were the poorest in all of America, except for the Irish immigrants, who were the poorest. Mm-hmm. And they were called Black Irish. and were despised by all the other immigrants who had already come in there, except the blacks at the time. And the Irish were able to scrape by on the generosity of the black people. Once their economic condition surpassed that, they no longer used that phrase and became white.
There have been numerous instances of groups becoming white in the United States. Mm-hmm. The Italians, right. Jews, Eastern Europeans as well. But there's been a hard barrier for black people.
So I hope you heard that. And I hope you listened carefully. And I hope you understand what's being said. As a result of chattel slavery, transatlantic slave trade, African peoples were designated as fit for this type of bondage and for this type of slavery because of the complexion of their skin. That's where you get blackness from. You have to understand that, like, Africa is a huge continent. Whole lot of countries on the continent of Africa. And where most of the enslaved people came from, West Africa particularly, you have a lot of different dialects being spoken, religions being practiced. But to support the institution of chattel slavery, they decided that they would dehumanize these people by ignoring all of their cultural differences, language differences, and just labeling all of these people as black. And people that didn't have the same phenotype, the same physical and biological traits, less melanin, lighter complexion. They became, even though they were from European countries, they became white in distinction to black people. The black people were the ones that were fit for chattel slavery, bondage, servitude. To distinguish ourselves from them, and I don't have time to talk about how chattel slavery in America is different than any type of slavery. It was, you know, I hear people all the time saying, what about the European indentured servitude, completely different from chattel slavery? I don't have time. And so what originally was like European identity based on country of origin, German, Swedish, to distinguish themselves from those that were only fit to be chattel, this category was created called white. Okay. Now, what happens during the transatlantic slave trade? What happens? You get all these West Africans that you've rounded up, that you have now labeled as black. And you bring them to this new place, this new continent, and through forced labor and horrible, brutal mistreatment, you attempt to strip them of their culture, their heritage, and their historical backgrounds based upon their countries of origin. And so after a while, you have a group of people that are being called black pejoratively. They really don't know much about where they're from. They don't know much about their countries of origin. I don't know where my ancestors are from in terms of, I know, I can go back as far as my great grandfather, but I don't know what country in Africa my ancestors came over here from. And that's not just my story. That's the story of countless Black people, African Americans in this country. Not necessarily the case, though, for my white brothers and sisters. In the clip that I played, you have to understand, I hope that you notice that white was originally considered Anglo-Saxon. Then you have Irish people come over. And initially, Irish people are castigated. They're ostracized. They're marginalized. They're seen as, quote unquote, Black Irish. Same thing with Italians. They were not immediately given entrance into this thing called whiteness. But over time, and as a result of their social ascendancy, they were able to matriculate into this construct called whiteness. But here's the main distinction. Listen to me. Even though they matriculated into this construct called whiteness, they still possess knowledge of their countries of origin. They knew they were Italian. They knew they were Irish. They knew they were German. They knew they were Swedish. Even though they all assimilated into this construct called whiteness, they didn't have the same dilemma that we have as Black people. Because they were able to say, I'm white Italian, I'm white Irish, I'm white German, I'm white Scottish. And so when we talk about white church, Black church, white church, Black church, one institution exists out of marginalization, oppression, racism, and not a total, but a deep loss of historical remembrance as far as their countries of origins are concerned. So we're all in this country now. We don't know necessarily where we're from. So we can't say, hey, we're the Ghanaian church. We can't say, hey, we're the Angolan church, we're the Nigerian church, because descendants of slaves in America, they were ripped from that historical remembrance was ripped from them. And so what happened? They took a pejorative that was meant negatively, and they said, "No, we're going to now take this term, Black, and we're going to remix it, and it's now going to become a badge of honor." And so the Black church is a church that reflects the group of people descending from enslaved people within this country that don't have the same historical remembrance that our European brothers and sisters have. However, they still recognize the beauty of their faith, the beauty of their fellowship, the beauty of their Holy Spirit wrought journey. And so we are a church unique from the other churches in America. We are the Black church. my white brothers and sisters can easily, and I would applaud this. Listen. I would applaud a white brother, a white sister saying, "Hey, I really am fond of my German culture, and I would really like to study the German contribution to the faith, and I would even love to have a German church, a church that is influenced by German history, as long as it's not Nazism." Okay, right? As long as they are Bonhoeffer Germans, right? I would say more power to you. Go for it. If somebody wants to identify strongly as Dutch Reformed, have at it. There are actually churches in Ireland that identify as Irish churches. Love it. Go for it. Do it. But there is a problem when you don't want to identify as an Irish church or a German church or an Italian church or a Swedish church, but instead you want to embrace the term white church. Because we understand the history of that term. And we understand why that term came into existence to begin with. I celebrate my brothers and sisters in Christ, my white brothers and sisters in Christ that like are like Scottish and proud. I'm with you. German and proud. Do it. Irish and proud. Yeah. But I don't have that same luxury that my white brothers and sisters do. And great masses of African Americans don't have that same luxury. And so what do we cling to? This term that was meant as a pejorative, blackness. As a matter of fact, where's my book? I always do this on my broadcast. I always end up looking for a book that I can't find. E. Franklin Frazier wrote an essay entitled The Negro Church in America. And then C. Eric Lincoln followed up that essay with one of his own entitled The Black Church in America, where he distinguished between what W.B. Du Bois, what Carter G. Woodson would have called the Negro Church. And he distinguished between that and the institution we now know as the Black Church, as a result of, protest movements and as a result of a greater level of consciousness that was introduced to our people, during and before the civil rights struggle. So this term, Black Church, is an affirmation of God's sovereign grace towards people here in America from the African diaspora that we were forced here, lost much of our historic remembrance, but we clung to Christ. Now, here's what I want to say, and then after I say this, I'm going to open it up for questions, because I think this is an instructive time. Yes, race is a social construct. Because I hear some of y'all saying, okay, all right, blackness was a pejorative placed upon people of dark skin from the African continent to aid and abet the horrible institution of chattel slavery, to dehumanize them in such a way that the non quote unquote black population would agree with their enslavement rather than the enslavement of people that were quote unquote white. Got you. And I understand that whiteness was created as a distinction to distinguish a human being from those that are only fit to be chattel slaves. So inherent in this term whiteness is ethnic supremacy. Inherent in this term whiteness is domination, power, and control. Inherent in this term, because it was created for the purpose of marginalizing and othering the people deemed as black, and making the people that assimilate into this thing called whiteness superior and better than those that are only fit for chattel slavery. So some of you are saying, I get that. I'm with you. I'm rocking with you. So why don't we do this? Why don't we do this? Why don't we just erase any race distinction whatsoever? Black, white, because we're all a part of the human race. All a part of the human race. Let me just say that I sympathize. I do. I really sympathize with that perspective. All right. Why don't we let's just stop calling it the black church, because what that's doing is it's feeding into this false construct called race, and we need to just move away from that altogether and stop the black and stop the white. Look, I sympathize with that, and I do think that for some people that perspective comes from a good place. However, here's why that perspective is a bit naive, and the best way that I can explain it is by taking y'all back to elementary school. Remember elementary school? Remember elementary school? Remember how petty kids were in elementary school? Remember how mean and cruel kids were in elementary school? Now, just imagine that the majority of the students in a particular elementary school, they get together and they decide that they are going to label some of the kids in the elementary school as having cooties. Remember that? Cooties? Ooh, you got cooties. Remember cooties? So just imagine. Let's do this thought experiment for a second. Just imagine a majority of the kids at a particular elementary school, they decide that they're going to label certain kids at the same school as having cooties. Now, does cooties exist? Is cooties a real thing? No, absolutely not. There's no such thing as cooties. Cooties, it's fake. However, are there social ramifications for being labeled? Will those kids be treated differently? Will there be backlash towards them after they are labeled as having cooties? Absolutely. Now, just imagine that after the majority of the kids label these students as having cooties, just imagine that this becomes the official policy of the school. That a large majority of the kids don't have cooties, and certain kids do have cooties. And this becomes the official policy of the school. And this policy lasts within that school for centuries. Soon as some kids got to the school as preschoolers or kindergartners, they had cooties. It doesn't exist in reality, but they're labeled as having it. That absolutely will determine how those kids are treated and related to. Now imagine that after centuries of this going on at this elementary school, a new principal comes in. And you've got the kids with cooties complaining and protesting. We're being treated unfairly. Kids are bullying us. We're being talked about. And the principal says, you know what? Cooties doesn't even exist. Let's just get beyond cooties. We don't even see cooties at this school. Yeah. Cooties might not exist, but the effects, the lingering impact of mistreatment as a result of being labeled, the policies within that school that have been codified to favor those without cooties and further marginalize those with cooties, all that still exists, whether you claim you see it or not. And so just imagine that those kids labeled with cooties get together and say, you know what? We're created in the image of God. We're image bearers. We deserve value, dignity. We deserve to be treated like human beings. They get together and they say, you know what? What y'all meant for evil, we're going to turn it around for good. So they create a cootie club. Now, some of you guys might be laughing, but think about it. Like this is a real parallel here. All right. They get shirts. I say cooties and proud. Right. They decide that they're going to take that pejorative and use it as a term of empowerment as they fight for their rights and as they fight to be treated fairly within a school and a system that has marginalized them for a long time. Saying, oh, let's just move past that might be nice and sentimental and might give you goosebumps. But when you say you don't see Black, what you're saying is that you also don't see the historic marginalization, mistreatment, and oppression of those labeled as Black within this country. Doesn't matter if it's a construct. The labeling of people has results and consequences. Doesn't matter if it doesn't exist in science or biology. The labeling of a whole group of people as this has social impact, legal impact. And so advocating for the existence of the Black church and the flourishing of the Black church is in fact right-sizing the mistreatment and the marginalization and the bullying that has occurred historically and even today. It's right-sizing. It is bringing dignity to a group of people that were stripped of that dignity. And so this is not I want you to hear me. Because whenever you start talking about this, and whenever you kind of get into this subject, this is not a bash my white brothers and sisters session. This is a let's think deeply. Let's move beyond surface level and knee-jerk fragility, and let's think deeply about these terms. And let's consider why it is good and godly, in my opinion, to support, advocate for, and cheer for a quote unquote institution that has been bullied, marginalized, and maligned since its inception in this country. And why identifying with another construct that was created to perpetuate supremacy and superiority, why that is particularly problematic within the American and Western context. I want to read something to you. Let me pull it up. It's in 1 Corinthians 12. I want to read something to you. And what I'm about to read to you informs my ministry and what I do. Now, to be sure, hold on one second. Let me find it. To be sure, y'all, I've got my priorities right. Number one, I'm a husband. Number two, I'm a father. Number three, I'm a pastor to this flock here at New Congregational Missionary Baptist Church. And then behind all of those, there's this ministry here. Now, there is a lot of overlap between this ministry here and what I do as the pastor here at New Congregational Missionary Baptist Church. A lot of philosophical, theological overlap, right? One spills into the other. But I want to read this text to you out of 1 Corinthians 12. Many of you are familiar with it. And this motivates what I do. This motivates what I do. 1 Corinthians 12, starting in verse 21, says, "The eye cannot say to the hand, I have no need of you, nor again the head to the feet, I have no need of you. On the contrary," listen to this, "the parts of the body that seem to be weaker are indispensable. And on those parts of the body that we think less honorable, we bestow greater honor. And our unpresentable parts are treated with greater modesty." Can I read verse 23 one more time? "And on those parts of the body that we think less honorable." Why was blackness created? What was the whole point behind that designation? To dishonor and devalue an entire group of people, to marginalize and oppress and subjugate an entire group of people. And if you believe that the Black church is a segment of Christ's universal body, then how do we apply what the Apostle Paul is saying here in 1 Corinthians chapter 12, verse 23? "On those parts of the body that we think less honorable, we bestow the greater honor, and our unpresentable parts are treated with greater modesty." Now, some of you guys may be like, all right, Pastor Isaiah, we got you. We rocking with you. But is this really a big deal? Like you really got to spend all this time talking about this? Is this really like what? Is it really a big deal? Yeah, it's a big deal. It is a big deal. There are forces, and ultimately, y'all, what do we know? We wrestle not against flesh and blood. Okay, so the people that we sometimes get angry with, they are pawns. They They are being used in this spiritual battle. The real culprit trying to attack, discredit, and diminish this segment of Christ's body is the enemy of our souls and demonic forces themselves. And listen, the attack upon the black church, the attempted dismantling of the black church, it's only accelerated since January. And what's happened since January? Now, to be sure, the enemy has been fighting the black church since its inception in this country and even before. Y'all know that my specialty is the black church on the North American continent. If you want to talk about the black church before the North American continent, you got to get with Dr. Vince Bantu, okay? Because he can go into the history of Nubia and all that stuff. My expertise is the history of the black church as it relates to the North American continent. And to be sure, the enemy has been trying to attack this institution since its inception in this country. But this institution, against the odds, against all of the attacks, all of the slander, it survived and even thrived. And yes, we need to do this, because you've got people coming at the black church every single direction. Hebrew Israelites, neo-fundamentalists, neo-conservatives, coming at the black church while attempting to prop up this very problematic institution. And we've discussed why it's problematic, but trying to prop up this very problematic institution called the white church. And we know why that term is even problematic. And if you want to see it happen in real time, well, not in real time, but if you want to see a shining example of this happening, check out this discussion between pastors. Pastors now are having this discussion. Now, again, some of these same pastors that we're about to see be the same ones talking about, black church, that term is racist, and this is a brand of Christianity they represent. Check this out.
That we are at high noon here in White Boy Summer. A familiar feeling is in the air as White Boy Summer returns once again. For some, it's a humorous and enjoyable way to commemorate and celebrate the Anglo-Saxon heritage of the West. But for others, it's viewed as a harbinger of immaturity and needless race essentialism. So which one is it? A psyop and a grift, or a good and godly way to obey the fifth commandment? Enjoy this video for your viewing pleasure.
To let me in, shattered windows and the sound of drums. People couldn't believe what I'd become. Revolutionaries wait for my head on a silver plate, just to walk out on a lonely street. All who would ever wanna be king. I hear Jerusalem bells ringing, Roman cavalry choirs are singing. Missionaries in a foreign field. For some reason I
maybe for some of you who are online less than we are, you're saying, what is white boy summer?
What is it?
I've never
Sounds
heard this term
racist.
before.
White supremacy summer? Is that what you're talking about?
Well, there's 3 words in there, and there's 2 of them that I don't think people have a lot of concern with.
Right.
It's the white part that...
Yeah, they're okay with boy, they're okay with summer.
Yeah, boy and
but,
summer, yeah, sounds great.
Cannot stand whitey.
White boy summer. So, white boy summer, I'm going to borrow a definition. This is from YouTuber James Anderson White. He puts out some good stuff. He said this. So, you're brand new to white boy summer. You clicked on this video because you love us, but you have no idea what the topic is. Let me lay out a definition. White boy summer, a mindset which is uniquely Christian and European in culture that promotes male fellowship, competition, and self-improvement, primarily in, but not limited to, the summer season. And again, credit for that goes to James Anderson White. So broadly speaking, this is 2021. There was a song. It's actually Tom Hanks's son. He riffed off of the idea of hot girl summer and put out a song, did some promotional stuff on white boy summer. It's crass. I mean, frat culture is cringe. If you're partying and drinking, like, what's the move tonight? Bro, the move is go start a family. Enough of this drinking, enough of this partying. So the source material, I would say, though, has been quickly eclipsed. Nobody references that song anymore. That's not what we're talking about. But what's been adopted by certain members in, I would say, our tribe, people who come to our conferences, they're Christian. And they say there's a positive aspect, again, Christian and European culture, that during the summer season, we want to celebrate. Now, certainly, there are individuals that have taken it and made memes or different ideas out of it that are not Christian. And to those, we would reject them. When we're talking about white boy summer, as far as we're talking about it, as far as others in our camp would talk about it, we're talking about a positive expression of Christian, European, Western culture and the celebration of our fathers, of our heritage, of the good that they left us, not everything about it, but the good that they left us, and hope for the continuance of it. The continuance of the West, the continuance of European culture, and most essentially, Christianity.
Here's my assumption, and I may be wrong, but here's my assumption. I'm assuming that those 3 men around that table probably know where their ancestors are from in terms of what country in Europe their ancestors are from. And again, I have no problem with people identifying with their country of origin and celebrating their country of origin. If they would have sat around that table and said, this is Scottish boy summer, this is German boy summer, this is Swedish boy summer, this is Irish boy summer, I'd have been like, yeah, I would love to learn more. But we've already discussed the problematic nature of the term white and the concept of whiteness. We've already discussed how that term came to be. And so you have to ask yourself, why would these men rather, why are these men choosing to not celebrate their countries of origin and instead celebrate a term, a construction that is absolutely associated with plunder, white supremacy, superiority, and illicit power? Now juxtapose that against, I found my book, y'all. I found my book. This is a book. This was actually, y'all, this was when I first started getting into Black church studies. This was the first book that I read. E. Franklin Frazier, The Negro Church in America, C. Eric Lincoln, The Black Church Since Frazier. First book that I read right here. So I want you to juxtapose an affirmation of this very problematic term white or whiteness with what Dr. C. Eric Lincoln writes here in his portion of the book. He says this, he says, Black Christians have had a bitter experience with religion in the white man's church. And that experience transcended slavery and freedom alike. Wherever white Christians and black Christians had come in contact with each other in America, black Christians had been demeaned by the white man's presumption of racial superiority, hence whiteness. In their own churches, in their own denominational structures, black Christians had become accustomed to a sense of dignity and self-fulfillment impossible to even contemplate in the white church in America. The black church created its own literature, established its own publishing houses, elected its own bishops and other administrators, founded its own colleges and seminaries, and developed its own unique style of worship. Shouldn't that be affirmed? Shouldn't that be celebrated? I think so. I think so. All right, y'all. All right. I want to open it up for any questions. Any questions? I see my brother Kwame Crosby, the pastor of the Sermon on the Mount Missionary Baptist Church. Rick, it does, doesn't it? It does, doesn't it? It does, right? I see my sister, Miss Juicy 1980. Shout out to all the 1980 babies. I was born in 1980. She just says, wow. What questions do you guys have? What questions do you guys have? Listen, while you guys are thinking of your questions, at 6:30 tonight, 6:30 p.m. tonight, I uploaded a clip entitled Willful Ignorance, Pride and Self-Hatred Part 2, the Vince Ellison edition. Now, what I did is I took portions from the long form video that I made and created a 4-minute video. And that is actually premiering on my channel at 6:30 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. Listen, help me to grow this platform. If you feel like this platform is beneficial, if you feel like there's some good information going out from this platform, then please like, share, subscribe, comment. All of that stuff helps me on the algorithm. I'm really trying to build this platform so that my engagement on YouTube mirrors my engagement on Facebook or even exceeds my engagement on Facebook. So please like, share, and subscribe. My friend, my brother, Rick Barboa says, see, this is why I go so hard on Christian nationalism. Absolutely. Absolutely. There is a conflation, right, that occurs, right? Whiteness, Christian nationalism, Christianity, right? This is all conflated in this toxic stew that that really needs to be regurgitated out of the collective stomachs of America. Any questions, y'all? Any questions, y'all? Any questions? Any questions? Any questions? Listen, I appreciate y'all rocking with me. Again, like, share, subscribe, comment, catch the premiere, 6:30 p.m. Willful Ignorance, Pride, and Self-Hatred in 4 minutes. It's just 4 minutes long, that clip. And that's premiering at 6:30 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. If you're on the East Coast, that's 9:30. If you're in the Midwest, that's 8:30 for you. I don't see any questions, so I assume that my work here is done. Love to hear from you in the comment section, and I would love for you to share this broadcast to your network. All right, y'all. Until next time. Okay, here's a question here. Officer 5000 Matabar. Does Christ love everyone? And I could be wrong. I could be wrong. Judging by your profile thumbnail, I could be wrong. But judging by your profile thumbnail, let me answer your question by asking a question. Are you a Hebrew Israelite? Are you a Hebrew Israelite? A professing Hebrew Israelite. Let me say that, because you might respond by saying, yeah, you're a Hebrew Israelite too. Are you a Hebrew Israelite? Okay, so moderators, please watch this guy carefully as I respond to his baiting question and his attempt to take me down a rabbit trail. Does the sun shine on the just and unjust? Absolutely. How do you account for God allowing an atheist to breathe his air? How do you account for God allowing an atheist to enjoy his grandchildren? You know what that's called? That's called common grace that is extended to every single human being. Common grace. Yes. So I don't know what precept packet you're going to run, what precept you're going to try to run to from your precept packet that you learned to study in your cult, but does the sun shine on every human being? And if you say yes to that question as the Bible conveys, then you've answered your own question. All right. All right, y'all. Love y'all. Appreciate y'all. Thank you to the Hebrew Israelite that is actually helping the algorithms and my engagement. Again, even the deflection and the red herrings help my channel to get out there. So thank you even to the Hebrew Israelite that is coming, asking baiting questions, trying to take us off track. But yes, the sun shines on the just and on the unjust. That it's God's common grace to every person, every nation. All right. Peace out, y'all.